Huh. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Annihilation 4, Immersion. Last class, we noted how human society and Area X appear to be responding to each other in similar ways. They're watching, studying, and recording each other. In this section of the novel, I think we see another parallel develop between human society and Area X. A few days after the expedition crossed the border, Area X infected the biologist with a spore, and she has been changing ever since. She's been freed from the psychologist's hypnotic control, and her senses have been heightened. But in this section of the novel, human society, or human culture, is presented as a kind of infection too, one that also changes and shapes minds. The psychologist tells a story about her husband. Part of my husband's life had been defined by nightmares he'd had as a child. These debilitating experiences had sent him to a psychiatrist. They involved a house and a basement and the awful crimes that had occurred there. But the psychiatrist had ruled out suppressed memory, and he was left at the end with just trying to draw the poison by keeping a diary about them. Then, as an adult at university, a few months before he'd joined the Navy, he'd gone to a classic film festival. And there, up on the big screen, my husband had seen his nightmares acted out. It was only then that he realized the television set must have been left on at some point when he was only a couple of years old, with that horror movie playing. The splinter in his mind, never fully dislodged, disintegrated into nothing. He said that was the moment he knew he was free, that it was from then on that he left behind the shadows of his childhood. Because it had all been an illusion, a fake, a forgery, a scrawling across his mind that had falsely made him go in one direction when he had been meant to go in another. The film is described as a splinter that had lodged in his mind, something very small that entered him and changed the way he thought. Kind of like the very small spore that has entered the biologist and has been changing the way she thinks. The film is also described as a scrawling across his mind that had falsely made him go in one direction when he had been meant to go in another, like the scrawling across the inner wall of the tower, which released the spore, and which has caused the biologist's life to go in a new direction. The spore from Area X is not the first thing to infect and alter the biologist. Human culture has already done that to her. It does that to everyone. All the bits of human culture that you encounter, all the films you see, all the books you read, all the news reports you watch, all the conversations you have, make an impression on you and change your perspective and shape the thoughts that you have and influence the direction of your life. Because, for instance, H.G. Wells encountered Darwin and Marx. He ended up thinking a certain way and believing certain kinds of futures were possible and writing the novel he did. Because you have encountered certain scientific theories, certain political ideologies, and certain works of art, you end up thinking a certain way, believing certain kinds of things are possible or not, and doing the things you do. When the biologist's husband decides to join an expedition to Area X, he begins having new kinds of dreams. But it isn't like he's all of a sudden being influenced by something. He's been influenced by human culture his entire life. One single movie he saw by accident shaped his dreams. And now something new, Area X, is influencing him and shaping his dreams. I've had a kind of dream for a while now, he confessed to me the night he told me he had agreed to join the 11th expedition. A new one, and not really a nightmare this time. In these dreams, he floated over a pristine wilderness as if from the vantage point of a marsh hawk, and the feeling of freedom is indescribable. It's as if you took everything from my nightmares and reversed it. As the dreams progressed and repeated, they varied in their intensity and their viewpoint. Some nights he swam through the marsh canals. Others he became a tree or a drop of water. Everything he experienced refreshed him. Everything he experienced made him want to go to Area X. In these dreams, the biologist's husband appears to be changing already, in ways the biologist changes when she goes to Area X. His senses are becoming heightened, everything refreshes him, he seems to merge with the landscape, becoming a tree or a drop of water. What's really interesting, though, is his phrasing. It's as if you took everything from my nightmares and reversed it. The movie that gave him nightmares, the piece of human culture, was one kind of influence. Area X is an opposite kind of influence. But they're both just kinds of influence. So who is the husband or the biologist really? Where do they really belong, in human society or in Area X? It isn't clear that they really are deep down any kind of person or really belong in any kind of place. There may be simply organisms that change in response to whichever kind of influence they happen to encounter. We're still not sure what exactly is going on in Area X, but the biologist is beginning to suspect that Area X is not killing the humans that enter it, but influencing them and causing them to transform. As she walks back from the lighthouse at night, she sees strange things on the ground. When I bent at the knees and shone my flashlight ahead, I saw more detritus from a kind of molting, a long trail of skin-like debris, husks, and sloughings. Clearly, I might soon meet what had shed this material, and just as clearly, the moaning creature was, or had once been, human. It looks like one of the members of the previous expeditions has, in a physical sense, changed from a human being into something else. The biologist might be physically changing too. Her body might be emitting a kind of light, and her wounds are healing very quickly. But she's also transforming in a mental sense, casting off the influence of human culture and surrendering to the influence of Area X. As she walks back from the lighthouse at night, she also hears, quite near, the strange moan they've been hearing in the distance since they arrived in Area X. I hesitated for just a moment. Some part of me wanted to see the creature, after having heard it for so many days. Was it the remnants of the scientist in me, trying to regroup, trying to apply logic when all that mattered was survival? If so, it was a very small part. Her scientific training, that aspect of human culture, compels her to investigate the source of the sound, discover what creature is emitting it, describe it, try to classify it. But that has become a small part of her. The influence of Area X is shifting her focus to pure survival. We see just how drastically the biologist has already changed when she returns to the base camp and the surveyor fires at her. "Tell me your name," she screamed. "Tell me your name. Tell me your goddamn fucking name." "That won't make any difference," I shouted back. "How would that make any difference? I don't understand why that makes a difference." Silence was my answer. She would speak no more. I was a demon, a devil, something she couldn't understand or had chosen not to. Why won't the narrator's name make a difference? Maybe, like she's no longer a scientist, she's no longer the person her name, whatever it was, once referred to. She's leaving all of the influences of human culture, including her name, behind. To the surveyor, the narrator seems like a demon, a devil, but the narrator's probably becoming something the surveyor couldn't understand or had chosen not to, something beyond human influence and human understanding, like Area X. In the next moment, we see just how far outside of human society the narrator is now. I didn't think, I didn't hesitate. I shot her. Her head jolted to the side and she slumped soundlessly into the grass and turned over on her back with a groan, as if she had been disturbed in her sleep, and then lay still. The side of her face was covered with blood, and her forehead looked grotesquely misshapen. I slid back down the incline. I was staring at my gun, shocked. I felt as if I were stuck between two futures, even though I had already made the decision to live in one of them. What are these two futures? I think one heads back to human civilization, human concerns, human ethics, and human feelings. The other heads deeper into Area X, whatever Area X is.